What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the JDW SportsTalkShow, where your fans welcome. We're back for first ever edition of our gambling episode. Obviously, gamble responsibly. You know, all the advice you take here today is from someone who does his research. Man, he knows his stuff. He's gonna give you game focuses. He's gonna give you some variant sheets. He's got a lot of really cool stuff to give you here. So, Shooter McHenry, why don't you introduce yourself, man? Tell everyone a little bit about your gambling and and your sheets and that kind of stuff before we get into the first games here.
Sure. First of all, I love sports and love gambling. I played sports for most of my childhood, and then as time went on, I couldn't play sports as much. Started getting into gambling as a way to kind of make watching games interesting, and I've grown to love it over time. I've learned how to do my own spreads, read some books, learned a lot from Billy Walters and his book "Secrets to a Life at Risk." And after I read that book, I started calculating some of my own spreads. There's a couple chapters in that book that teach you how to do that. And once I started being able to put numbers together and have that correlate with what was going on on the field, I really started to get addicted to it. So now I do lots of types of calculations for different stats and rankings. I do my own power ranking and do game focus on matchups like we got going on tonight, the divisional round. And here at the end, I'll go over some bets that I made for the divisional round here. But first up, we'll be talking about the Texans and the Chiefs. And by power ranking, we got the Texans at number 15 and the Chiefs at number 2. And Vegas had them starting out, had the Chiefs started off at a 9.5 advantage. I had that adjusted to a bigger advantage. I had the Chiefs at minus 11.2. So I think this game could possibly get out of hand, depending on how that Texans offensive line holds up. But when you do like a actual analysis of combined offense and combined defense, combined offense wise, Texans are at 20, Chiefs are at 11. So Chiefs have advantage on offense. Combined defense, Texans are at 9, Chiefs are at 2. So Chiefs also had advantage there. When you add those up, you got Chiefs at 13 and Texans at 29. So the Chiefs are the higher rated team, both on offense and defense. That's going to be hard for the Texans to overcome, especially when they're traveling to an outdoor stadium. You know, the Texans are used to playing indoors, and now you have to go outdoors in the cold and play on grass. So that's going to be a challenge. Now, the Chiefs could come out slow. They've been sitting there for a couple weeks. So I wonder how that's going to affect this matchup. And if I'm not mistaken, I think didn't the Texans play the Chiefs last year?
I think so.
If I remember right, that game, the Texans got out to a lead that in the first half, and then the Chiefs come back in the second half and won decisively. So I'm seeing maybe the same thing could happen there. I don't know. I'm not counting out the Texans completely. Their defense is playing very well. If they can run the ball with Joe Mixon, that's definitely gonna again solve some of those offensive line issues. But if the Chiefs can get after Stroud, it's going to be a long day for the Texans. And that offensive line is a concern again. And I think, it held up just fine when you're at home against the Chargers. But when you're on the road against the Chiefs, now I'm a little bit more concerned about that offensive line. So with Chris Jones sitting in there, he's a load. He's a problem. And you can go down. I think there are some stats to offset, when you actually look at, passing offense for the Texans. They're ranked 20th, but then the passing defense for the Chiefs is ranked 18th. So that kind of offsets. The Chiefs are 13th in passing offense, so they're a little bit better rank-wise. But then the Texans' pass defense is a little bit better. So that kind of offsets. And if you look at rushing offense versus rushing defense, you got kind of the same situation there because the Chiefs at the 22nd ranked rushing offense is playing a good rushing defense at number 11 for the Texans. And then vice versa, the Texans rushing offense is a little bit better than the Chiefs. But then again, the Chiefs rushing defense is even better because they're ranked 5th. So it's kind of like strength on strength here when it comes to your passing offense versus your passing defense and rushing offense versus rushing defense in this game. There is a strength on strength scenario to this matchup. So in that respect, that's what makes this game have an element to it where it could get real close and where the Texans could upset the Chiefs, because really there are some similarities in the statistics. I just think overall, when you're talking about the entire team, yeah, you got the Chiefs as the higher rated team, and obviously with the advantage being at home and all that experience they have, and just the battle-tested, proven quarterback. Yeah, it's going to be a tough task for the Texans. This is one of those games where, gambling-wise, when I'm looking at putting my money somewhere, it's going to be with the Chiefs on the spread. I'll count on the Chiefs with Pat Mahomes, the rest having home field advantage to possibly come out slow, but by the end of the game, be up 10 or more. That's where my money is on that one. So that's kind of my focus for the end of my focus for that game and the stats for that. You got any angles on that game yourself?
So, I look at this game as CJ Stroud is very good under pressure, and he's going to have to be the best he ever has been under pressure, because that Texans interior of the offensive line is horrible. And I think it's going to be difficult for the Texans to even get a run game going. So if you can't get a run game going consistently, that makes it that much easier for the defensive line to tee off on the quarterback. They know it's going to be a pass. They know it's not going to be a run because they can't run it here. And they're not. I know. I think the Texans are going to have to be able to get the run going on the outside, because the Texans' strength is their tackles on the outside more so than the interior. Now the Texans are getting Shaq Mason back, but he has not been very good anyways. So I don't think he's going to make a big difference, especially playing Chris Jones. Really not going to make much of a difference in George Karlaftis and Mike Donna, all the guys that they have in the interior there. It is an insane interior defensive line. Really, the entire defensive line is tough, but Stroud is really good under pressure. But the only thing is, like, Nico Collins could have a big game, but the Chiefs have a really good defense, man. They know how to pressure the quarterback. They know how to take your best weapon out of the game. So, no Tank Dell, no Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
Who is going to be able to step up in the passing game as well?
So
that's my big question.
One of the big points, and I wrote this down when I was doing my spread calculation. The Chiefs have the advantage with the injury list. And when I'm talking about injury list, I'm talking about the length of it, like number of injuries. How many guys do you have hurt or out and banged up? Quality of injury, I don't calculate that as closely. If it's obvious, I will give some extra points for that. But the Chiefs are sitting there getting a little bit healthier, and there's part of me that thinks that I'm thinking that the Chargers come into that game a little bit distracted from what was going on out there in LA. I'm wondering if that wasn't the perfect storm for the Texans there. And now you're playing a team that they're not going to have that emotional baggage. It's just a completely different scenario. It's going to be cold. I wrote down that the forecast has it at 27 degrees. So it's going to be pretty cold there. I don't know about the wind. If it's very windy at all, this game changes. But hey, these teams both have to play in the cold, and you never know how that affects. I mean, when does the wind gust come?
Right. Yeah. It's big. But another thing I want to bring up is, the Texans. This was my point with the Texans earlier in our other show. The Texans have a really good defense, and the defense can keep them in the game. But in the playoffs, especially versus the better teams like the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, your defense could keep you in it, but you have to win it with your offense. You know what I mean? And I'm not too sure. Like, I know CJ Stroud is great under pressure. 2-minute warning last week towards the end of the game in the biggest moments. CJ Stroud is his best when it's the biggest moments. But at the end of the day, this Chiefs defense has been in those big moments. They've played the best of the best. They played Allen. They played Lamar. They played the best quarterbacks under pressure. So it's not like CJ Stroud is going to be their first rodeo or their first challenge against a quarterback that's really good under pressure, But I don't think CJ Stroud is going to be able to overcome that pressure enough. You know what I mean?
It's a concern with that offensive line. If that offensive line, if it could hold up, yeah, I'd give them a very good shot winning this game. But I'm doubting that because of the presence of Chris Jones, and we'll see how it goes. I do think that with the Texans, you kind of have that triad factor of, you have a good quarterback, you have a good running back, and you have a good coach, and that gives you a chance to beat good defenses every week when you have that. So they can definitely surprise everybody, and they could come in and cover that spread. I don't think it's a bad bet to bet the Texans on covering the spread, to be honest. Like, I don't think it's throwing your money away or anything. It's just, like, what am I going to bet on, though? Like, if I'm going to bet money, I'm going to bet it on Patrick Mahomes because he's the proven guy. He's Money Mahomes, right? He's won me money before. What do you think's going to happen? Like, well, if I'm going to bet with statistics and what's happened in the past, well, I'm going to bet on good teams. You bet. What do they say? Good teams win, great teams cover, and the Chiefs are a great team. So give me them the cover in this game. But yeah, I would not be. It's not going to surprise me if the Texans do something at all. Not at all.
Right.
I'm not going to be shocked.
See, if I were to put money on it, I think I would put money on the Texans covering because, like I said, the defense is very good. But then, see, the more I talk about it, I might not. But I mean, that defense is very good. And if that offense can't stay on the field, like if they can't run the ball, if they can't sustain any kind of offense to give that defense rest, that defense can get tired as the game goes on as well. Not only just being in that cold, not only being in Kansas City and being as loud as can be, not being able to run the football and then not giving that defense a chance to rest. That can make it that much. I don't really want to say easier, but it is going to make it easier on the Chiefs' offense to put up points and cover themselves. But I could also see it as the Texans keeping a close game all the way through, and then the Chiefs winning on a game-winning drive. That's where a lot of people kind of got like disrespectful with Mahomes in a couple ways in the Chiefs, like saying, "Oh, they're winning these one-score games." Well, they know how to win. It's not like this team hasn't won a Super Bowl. It's not like this team hasn't been in a winning position before. I mean, the Chiefs have been in a winning position every single year, so it's not like they don't know how to win. If it was any other team, maybe like the Vikings and Sam Darnold, like maybe those one-score games are an issue, when it comes to the playoffs. But the Chiefs, it's not an issue. And I also look at it as this, when it's win or die, Mahomes has a whole nother down, man. It's not just 3 downs, it's now 4. You give Mahomes an extra down like that, good luck stopping him. It makes it that much more difficult. And on top of it being that extra down, he is going to fight and claw for every single yard, and that Mahomes is just, Mahomes is going to come out in that game, that we know. So
the Chiefs are they've won it a couple times now. So they're not gonna approach the regular season the same way they did 2 years ago. And they're going to be even more focused, even more serious now that it's playoff time. I do think that there was some malaise a little bit with the regular season because it's almost like they know it was inevitable that they were going to get to the playoffs, and that's what they're really waiting for. I'm not, and honestly, what you said about the spread is a good point because the Chiefs have played a lot of close games, and with 2 good defenses, it's hard to get up that 9 or 10 points, right? Especially if there's not a lot of points being scored, it's not going to be easy to get up 10. You're right on that. Very right. Right now I'm just banking. My bank is on that offensive line of the Texans not being a hold up. I think at home, when you're playing in a home environment, they were able to better. But now that you're on the road and you're going to play in that noise, communication is going to be more of an issue. And now how do you hold up, right? And against the better team. So,
Exactly.
yeah. We'll see. But, yeah, you're right. Like the spread part of it is tricky. But,
Yeah. And then I'll throw one more thing in there, and then that'll be it for me for this game. Last game, Texans beating the Chargers. I think that's a pretty big confidence booster. Even though, it was at home, all this, everyone was saying, the Chargers are going to win, including myself. I did not think that the Texans were going to win. But the Texans ended up winning that game. So, how much confidence does that put in the Texans? And does that elevate their play at all? Does that elevate the offensive line at all? Because confidence is a big factor. The Texans came into the postseason limping. They lost like 3 out of their last 4. They were really struggling. But they came in the playoffs, and everyone's saying, hey, Texans don't have a shot. They come in and they beat the Chargers. How much does that affect their confidence, and how much does that affect their performance?
Beat them, they beat them down.
They did. It wasn't even close.
No. Surprisingly. No. Yeah.
So, any last thoughts? That's it for the Texans and Chiefs game?
No. Looking forward to it. All right.
Me too. Me too. All right. Next game. Moving on to the first AFC team, or the first NFC game. You have the Commanders and the Lions. Are you feeling the upset? What is Vegas saying about this game? This is a fun game to look into.
Yeah. I have the spread calculated right the same as Vegas. I have a 9.4 and they have a 9.5. So I think their spread is accurate. The Commanders overall were ranked number 9 coming into the playoffs. Lions were the number 1 ranked team. I do give the Commanders a shot here. The Lions have a poor pass defense. So if you look at their combined ranking, it's like 28. I think it was, if I was not mistaken here. Yep, 28. So if Jaden Daniels can pass on their defense, yeah, I give them a good chance. Now, I'm a little iffy on that too, because the Lions are really good at running the ball and the Commanders are not good at stopping the run. So if the Lions are going to run up and down the field on you all day, it's going to be a long day for the Commanders. So can they slow them down? Can they stop the run at all? I haven't seen anybody be able to do it really against the Lions. The Lions defense has been injured and they've been a little bit slower, but that offense against any team that can't stop the run has been dominant. So I think they got Gibbs back now. They got Montgomery. I'm sorry, Montgomery was hurt. Now he's back healthy. So yeah, no. Now, if you look at just their combined offense and defensive ranking, it's fairly close. The Lions are first, and the Commanders. I call them the commies sometimes. The Commanders are fourth, and on defense, the Lions are 15th, and then the Commanders are 13th. So it's pretty even. You add those up, and it's a very, very even matchup on combined defense, combined offense. Now, on total offense, when you look at yards and points, there again, it's really even. And on total defense, it kind of offsets. So the Lions are really good at not giving up points. They're ranked 7th, but they're not great at giving up yards. So they're ranked 20th in yards. The Commanders, they're a little bit better at giving up points, giving up yards at 10, and points, they're not quite as good at 18. So you got the Lions as the better point defense, and the Commanders as a better yard defense, basically. So that kind of offsets there. It's kind of like strength on strength. And when you get down to the passing offense versus the passing defense, obviously that's where you have like your one big advantage for the Commanders. So the passing defense, 29 for the Lions. I think I said 28 later, but it's actually 29. And the passing defense, though, for the Commanders is ranked number 3. So that's interesting. The Commanders have a really good pass defense. I didn't know that really in the regular season, but when I was doing the stats for this game, I was like, wow, that's pretty good. But their rushing defense is at 27. So really good at stopping the pass, bad at stopping the run. We'll see how that plays out. The Commanders on passing offense are 16. Lions are number 2. And then rushing offense, Commanders are 3 and the Lions are 5. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty close. And, I think in that first game the Commanders played against the Bucs, they were doing a lot of ball control, a lot of running, a lot of controlling the clock, a lot. So, my cousin and I, we talked about the over-under in this game, and we were really wanting, if the number got up to like 56, 56 and a half, we were wanting to maybe go under. But it was right around 55, 55 and a half. So it's a little iffy on an indoor game because you do have 2 good quarterbacks. The Lions' pass defense is a little weak, so you see the potential where it could turn into a shootout because I think the Commanders may not be able to stop the run, and the Lions start going up and down the field. And I think the Lions might have a hard time stopping the pass because JDW can get outside the pocket and throw balls and all that. So they might be able to move the ball just fine as well, and you have a shootout. Like very, very, very easily could happen. So I didn't touch the over/under in this game because I think it could go both ways. Yeah, obviously, if you're gonna put your money on somebody, I'd put it on the Lions. My cousin's he's got the Lions to cover the spread. He thinks they'll do it indoors at home. I'm going to keep my money away from this game. That's what I decided. I really don't have a bet on this game. I did do like a parlay where I parlayed a touchdown for Amon-Ra St. Brown with Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. He's from the Indianapolis area. I know that guy. He's a straight killer. He's a dog. I got him a touchdown. I have Amon-Ra a touchdown, and I have Jaden Daniels 2 touchdowns. I had that in a parlay, mainly because the prices on all those are very good. Like when you look at the odds, because like if you take, say you take Goff for 2 touchdowns, you're going to get like minus 200, minus 250, minus 150 even on that. But with Jaden Daniels, you're going to get like plus 100 for 2 touchdowns. And if it turns into a shootout, he's probably going to get those 2 touchdowns. And if he gets 2 of them, there's a good chance one of them goes to Scary Terry, and a very good chance that Amon-Ra St. Brown breaks one at any time for a touchdown. Goff's probably going to get a couple as well, especially if it turns into a shootout. So if you're looking for a parlay touchdown-wise, that's kind of what I'd be doing. And beyond that, on straight bets, I'm not going to touch this game. I'm not sure who's going to win, and I could see it going a couple different ways. The stats and are a little bit curious because they're close in some respects, but then there's other respects where there's a little separation. So it's a hard one to pin with your money.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
What's your angle on this? You got any angles on it?
So I think that we're going to know who's going to win this game within the first couple drives. I think the first couple drives is going to tell us exactly how this game's going to go. I mean, are the Commanders going to – if the Commanders get out to a quick lead, to an early lead, maybe 10 points, that's their key. The Commanders have to start quick. They played last week. They're hot. They haven't rested. Could work to their disadvantage as well, but the Lions are well rested. Could work towards them as well. But the Commanders, man, if they had come out hot and they could really get up like 10, 14 points, it's probably not going to happen. But like you were saying, the Lions' passing defense is not very good. So if the Commanders can come out firing, they go up a couple scores, take the Lions' run game out of it, and force the Lions to pass the football against their strength, which is, the Commanders' strength as the passing defense. If you could force the Lions to have to pass the football, probably have a better chance. But Goff has looked so good this year that I don't really know if the Commanders' defense can still, even though they have the number 3 passing defense, it just kind of depends on what Goff shows up as well. Do we get a Jared Goff that throws 5 interceptions versus the Texans, or a perfect pass rating through 3 weeks versus some really good defenses on top of that? And, the Commanders have to get to a strong lead. They have to start up. They have to come out firing. If they don't, if the Lions come out and they come out firing, the Commanders start sluggish, I don't think the Commanders have a chance because of that run defense. I think the Lions can keep themselves in this game just because of their run game alone and how the Commanders' run defense is. But you don't want to run the ball too much when you're down multiple scores. You're running that football, you're chewing that clock, you're helping the Commanders at that point. So I think the Lions, if they could get out to that quick lead, if the Lions get out early, the Commanders start slow, that's probably game. If because like you were saying, that Lions run game so difficult to stop. But if Jared Goff has one of those games, even when their run game is doing well, if Jared Goff throws 2-3 interceptions, can you count on that Lions passing defense to stop Jaden Daniels? And one thing I want to bring up is last week. Remember when we were talking about last week about Baker Mayfield and Jaden Daniels and the playoff experience and this and that? Well, that didn't seem like it mattered to Jaden Daniels. I mean, last 2 minutes of the game, drove him down the field, kicked a field goal. Now, that could be another very important topic of discussion for this game as well, field goals, which we'll talk about this in another game later on as well. The field goals could be the big difference. Do you miss an extra point? Do you miss a field goal? That 1 point, those 3 points in a playoff game, they're that much bigger. So, with the kicker last week, I think Gonzalez was his name. I don't remember. I'm blanking on his name, but he hit the doink. He had the doink. So does that affect his confidence coming this week? Could that be in the back of his head?
Sure, and I think your point when you talk about a team getting off to an early lead is going to be very important for the Commanders and the Texans in the other game. If they can come out and get that early lead, that really changes the complexity of the game and what the other team needs to do. It makes them one-dimensional, and that can give you an advantage there. And then the turnovers are just going to be huge. It always is in these playoff games. The Commanders' pass defense is good enough to get an interception or two against Goff. They really are. And if, say, the Lions do cough up the ball when they're running, they fumble or something like that, the Commanders get them there, and they can force the Lions into passing more, and then that pass defense, they can lean on that pass defense. They get the Lions in a tricky situation there where they end up, trying to press, getting a turnover. That's how the Commanders can win this game. You get off to that early lead with a turnover or something like that, and you get the snowball rolling downhill. And and I do think this game, no matter what, will be close. Now, if somebody's going to blow somebody out, I'm taking the Lions for sure. But something's just telling me that the Commanders they're like one of those quirky, tricky teams that they're just going to be a tough out.
Yep.
They played last week. The Lions weren't. I think there's a chance that they can come out, get that early lead, and really, put the Lions in a place where they're stressing out a little bit. So I hope it's a good game. I really do. We'll see what happens. And yeah, Commanders an interesting team. I like Jaden Daniels, and it says Scary Terry McLaurin's he's an Indiana kid. He come from this area, and he's been straight clutch ever since he was in high school. Man, he is unstoppable. Until that guy gets old and slows down, good luck covering him. That's pretty much all I got for that one.
All right, on to the second NFC team, or the NFC matchup. Rams and Eagles. Let me start off with a question. This is how I guess we could, start this off. Mm-hmm. If the Lions, let's just live in a world for a second where the Lions win. Do we see Matthew Stafford go up against his old team in the good old NFC Championship?
Hey. Yeah, we've seen it once, so I'm kind of thinking the odds are not against it. So
yeah.
Possibly. The thing that gives the Rams the chance is having Matthew Stafford. You have that battle-tested Super Bowl winning quarterback there. The challenge for those guys is going to be going on the road, playing outdoors, playing in the cold. Last time I checked the weather, it didn't look good. I'm actually taking the under in this game because of the weather. There's been a rain-snow chance mix all week. I've been checking it as the weeks went on. Of course, it could change game day. I mean, you could think snow and rain all week, and then game day it's just clear. But yeah, my money right now is sitting on the under, and it's sitting on the Eagles at -6. I got that bet in early when I seen the line come out. I jumped on it just because the Rams have one of the lower ranked teams in the playoffs still. I mean, their defense coming into the playoffs is still at like 20-22. I don't see them being able to stop the Eagles' run game. and being outdoors, if it's cold, if it's windy, that's going to cut down the effectiveness of Matthew Stafford. The Eagles are just, and for a person like me, I'm an ex-engineer, I'm an ex-Army engineer and stuff, so I'm very much into the numbers and the stats. And when you have a team like the Eagles that have such good statistics and you're such a higher step above the other team, I can't turn that down. And that's really why my money's on the Eagles. Hey, yeah, can the Rams win it? Sure, they can. They got a great coach, they got a good running back, they got a good quarterback, and that gives them a chance. But the Eagles have a great defense. That defense is at home. It might be in nasty weather. Defense wins in the playoffs. All these offenses can score in the playoffs, especially when you get to this point. Normally the question is which defense can shut down the other team's offense. And it's just going to be a tall task because the Eagles are going to be able to run the ball. And when you can run the ball and control the clock outside on grass, it's going to be tough to beat. And, those are my two bets. I'm not going to go through all the stats and bore you with every single statistic here, but just know that the Eagles are a step above. That defense is ranked number 1 in yards and points and combined defense. So yeah, and then you got the best running game in the league basically there. I guess the Ravens would have something to say about that. Between the Ravens and the Eagles, those are the two best running games. And in a nasty weather game, that's who I'm taking. So yeah, I guess I did do a wildfire adjustment for this game as well on the spread. Let's see what I had on the spread here. Vegas has the Eagles at -6. I have the Eagles at -7.6. So I do have this game. I have the spread as a bigger advantage for the Eagles, just like in the Chiefs Texans matchup. I have the Chiefs at a little bit higher point spread than what Vegas does. I could be wrong there. But yeah, the stats are saying that, this team's a step above, and that's what I'm going to roll with. I'm thinking that the Eagles have a good chance to win this one, and win this one by a touchdown or more. And I think with the bad weather, that this could get into a slugfest on the ground, a lot of running. The Rams can run the ball a little bit with Kyren Williams, so I could see this with with it being windy or snowy or rainy, just two teams trying to run, control the ball. That could honestly be an advantage for the Rams in the end. If the weather's bad, it's just going to keep the game close to where it could be like one score, and then whoever slops in the last touchdown wins. It could ruin my day like that. That last touchdown could destroy the spread and get an over.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna play with the odds here, you're gonna go with the weather, and you're gonna go with the statistically superior team. So that's what I'm seeing here, man. What do you got for it?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with everything you said, man. The Eagles they're just a flat out better football team. Statistically, everything. Maybe the one thing I would take, maybe a couple things I take over the Eagles is the Rams head coach, and I would take the Rams quarterback, and that might be about it. And in the playoffs, those two things are great. But in the playoffs, you have to be complete. You have to be more complete than that. And, don't get me wrong. The Rams are flashy. They have a couple really flashy pieces that can bring the rest, that can make the rest look better, like Puka, Kupp, Kyren. Tyler, I think they got the tight end back. I think Higbee they got back. So they have all really good weapons, really flashy. But, in the playoffs, sometimes flashy isn't the way to win. In the Eagles, they're flashy in the ways you want to be in the playoffs. In a game like this where the weather is going to be crap, the Eagles, they can run the damn football, whether it's Hurst, whether it's Barkley. And on top of that, if you're struggling to stop their run, they could still throw it over the top on you to AJ Brown, Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like you said, that Eagles defense is pretty good. They have some really solid young players in the secondary. The Eagles have it, man. They haven't made, the defensive line maybe is their weakness. is one of their weaker points, believe it or not. Maybe sometimes they struggle to get pressure, and if you struggle to get pressure on Matthew Stafford, I don't care who you got. I mean, it doesn't. I don't really care who you got in the secondary with those weapons. Stafford can carve you up, but like you said, colder game, and I think this is a game where Matthew Stafford throws 1 or 2 interceptions, and it's one of those games where Stafford's really aggressive. He's a Brett Favre kind of a quarterback. He's going to throw interceptions, and I think this is one of those games where he throws those interceptions, and in a game where you can't afford to lose any possessions because the Eagles are just going to have this stranglehold on the clock. I mean, the way they can run the football and the Rams struggling to stop the run, I mean, they're just going to bleed that clock like all hell, man. So, the Rams can't afford to turn the ball over. So Matthew Stafford throws a pick or two, that could bear. One pick could very simply be the difference in this game. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. I think the Eagles are a comfortable pick in this game. So, but like you said, Super Bowl winning quarterback on the other side, Super Bowl winning head coach, couple of really good players, really flashy players. The Rams defense line is really good too, but isn't going to be enough to stop the Eagles run game. Probably not. A lot of the better teams in the league, better run defense struggle to stop it. So I'm not too sure if the Rams could stop it. But could this be a game where Jalen Hurts turns the ball over? Say something crazy is happening, like say the Eagles are just having a hard time getting the run game going, which probably isn't going to happen. But let's throw that theoretical in there. Sometimes they're fun to talk about. If they can't get that run game going, can Jalen Hurts put the game on his back and win the game? Even though he's got all those weapons, it seems like even before Barkley came to the Eagles this year, it seemed like Hurts was struggling because he didn't have a good run game, that he didn't really have something else to rely on. And let's just say that Eagles run game doesn't show up. Let's say it's not as good as it's been all year, and Hurts has to put the game on his back. Could he do it? I'm not too sure, but I would have more confidence in Matthew Stafford in that situation.
Oh, for sure. And turnovers are always huge. That's one thing it's hard to calculate, who's going to turn the ball over more and who's going to get more possessions. So, if somebody goes out there and doesn't perform as well as they normally do, then that can throw the entire team's day off. And, I'm wondering, I know my cousin, he was talking about this game, and he was asking me, will the NFL Mafia show up for the Los Angeles Fire Department? Will they all be there wearing hats, and will the refs be calling the game a certain way and that kind of deal?
Yeah.
But I kind of counter that with, last week was a pretty emotional week for them, a big emotional win. And a lot of times after those emotional wins, you can have a letdown. There's been a lot of distractions for the Rams too this last week. I mean, you've had all these wildfires going on. You've had all that. And that first week, they performed really well. Well, I look back at the Chargers. The Chargers didn't do so well down there in Texas. So, I felt like they were a little bit better than that. And I'm like, well, what was going on with that team? Well, you have LA on fire. You have all those people out of place. I think for one team, it probably did show up. And for the other team, they kind of used it more as motivation. They kind of caught the momentum there. And for one team, it worked. And for one team, it didn't. So I'm wondering if that doesn't catch up with the Rams. And there again, does that almost have a reverse psychology effect where it galvanizes the team and they come out with just their best performance of the season?
Right.
It could. I mean, that could really galvanize a squad like that. And they come out just to be stubborn and like they're not going to lose with that mindset. And it just turns into a rock fight. And then, like I said, at the end, somebody slops in a score.
Yeah, you never know. That can ruin anyone's day.
The evil backdoor cover.
Hey, never know. But another thing I do want to bring up is that the Rams are going across the country, man. A lot of times when teams have to go across the country, they have to do some significant traveling. It tends to have an effect on them. So
it's a great gambling point. The teams that have been traveling like that have not been doing very well. So
and on top of that, LA is always warm. It's always warm over there. Going to cold, icy, that nasty weather, and everything on top of that. Eagles fans are tough, man. That stadium is tough.
It's not the Dolphins, but they're still a warm weather team.
Right.
The Rams are. It's not. They're not like and you got to remember that too about these California teams that come out there from the warm weather, from indoor stadiums. When you come outside, it's an issue. Like you're going from turf to playing on grass, which is more slippery. You're going from playing indoors where it's warm and there's no wind and everything's perfect to now it's cold, it's windy, there's moisture on the ball. and Matthew Stafford, as an experienced quarterback, he's not going to have a huge issue with that. But I will say about Stafford, he's played indoors most of his career. He played at the Lions indoors and he's played for the Rams indoors. So I just think, in the way I look at games from a gambler's perspective, when a team goes from indoors to outdoors, when you go from turf to grass, that's one of the bigger challenges. Just like, if the Dolphins have to go to Buffalo or New England to play in the snow, like that's a bigger advantage. Like you got to add a point for that, and adding a point, that's a lot. Like when you talk about an NFL game that comes down to, most of them are one score games between 3 and 7 points. When you give somebody an entire point, it's a big deal. You mean, oh, it's just a point. No, a point's a huge deal. Half a point's pretty big. Half a point loses and wins millions every day.
That's right. That's right. Every little sliver of change, it makes a difference.
It does.
Sure does. All right. Is that all we got for that game, or are we ready to move on to the last one? Which
I think we're ready for
may be the most difficult. Which may be the most difficult game to predict this weekend.
I think it's the tightest. Yep.
So Ravens, Bills. Let's hear it, man. Let's hear all the good stuff.
All right. Well, Vegas, when I looked, they had it at -1, and when I calculated the spread, I had it at -1.4. So both our calculations are pretty close there. I had the Ravens with a little bit more of an edge than they did. You start looking at how the offense has performed, how the defense has performed. They're pretty similar. You got the Ravens at number 2, the Bills at number 5 on offense. You got Ravens at number 12 on defense, the Bills at 15. Pretty similar there. But the Ravens at a slight advantage. And start diving into some of the other stats, and you get down to the passing offense. Those are pretty even. We got the Ravens at 8, the Bills at 9. So that passing offense is pretty even there. And then passing defense, Ravens are at 30 and the Bills are at 20. So Bills have a little bit of an advantage in passing defense. And drop down, look at rushing defense. Well, you got Ravens at number 1 on rushing defense and the Bills at number 12. So then the Ravens have the advantage when it comes to run defense. Looking at rushing offense, the Ravens have the advantage there at number 1. The Bills are at number 9. So I'd say that's one of the little advantages in the game, is that the Ravens have a little bit better running game, especially when you consider that the two passing offenses are ranked very similar at 8 and 9. I thought the Bills would have had a little more advantage there, and they don't. Lamar's right on pace with him. So if I'm looking at edges, who has edge in what? Well, I think the Ravens have a little bit better run defense. They're elite. They're not just good, they're number 1. So really hard to run against. Will the Bills be able to run at all? At all? Will Josh Allen be able to run at all? That's what I'm asking. Now, the pass defense isn't good for the Ravens, but when you're one-dimensional, that's usually not good. There's snow in the forecast. This could turn into a sloppy snow game. There's been snow in the forecast all week. If it turns into just a ground and pound game, I'm liking Derrick Henry in this one, right? He's elite, not just good. There again, elite. And I feel like Josh Allen and Lamar are pretty similar. When you talk about throwing, running, maybe one's a little bit better than the other at one or the other, but they're both just on that elite level. I don't have anybody at a big advantage there when you look at quarterback. I see the big advantage being the running back and Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is a beast. He is another elite player. So the Ravens are sitting there with probably more studs than the Bills. That's really what I see this game coming down to, because it's so close, is that I just see more studs on the side of the Ravens with Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and that number one run defense. I'm thinking that's enough to get it done in a sloppy, cold game. Uh, I have the Bills defense at being like, combined at 15, which is one of the lower ranked defenses. So let's see if they can stop the run against the Ravens in the cold. And, being that the game is outdoors and it's very similar to conditions where the Ravens play at home, the Ravens also play outdoors on turf, just like the Bills do. So I don't see there being any big advantage there beyond the crowd noise. It's not like the Ravens are going, from indoors to outdoors, or they're coming from California, or they're coming from Florida. They're used to the cold, and they've got that running game, which is going to carry in the cold. But I would say the Bills' one big chance is the pass defense of the Ravens. I think, the Bills should be able to pass the ball. I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to. They got a really good offensive line. If that offensive line can hold up and pass blocking long enough, then, yeah, the Bills will be able to move the ball up and down the field. The problem there is if it is windy, if it is a little bit cold, if they can't complete passes, if both teams can't complete passes, and it turns into just a running game, the Ravens have the advantage here. And so there again, my money on this game is on the Ravens money line and also on the under. I like taking these unders in the playoffs, cold weather, snow, running games. Yeah, that's where I'm gonna put my money on these two. And I just I have 5 bets total this weekend. So yeah, Ravens money line, Eagles -6, Chiefs -8.5, the Ravens under, the Eagles under. And if I get lucky, I'll win 3 of those 5. That's what I'm aiming at. Come out with a profit, come out a little bit ahead. Either you can get a little more lucky than that, win a little more money, or not as lucky and lose a little bit. But I try to place 5 bets. That way it comes out decisive. When you place an odd number of bets, sometimes when you place an even, like 4 bets, you win 2, you lose 2, and it's just a draw. I like to make it odd there and decisive. So yeah, I think all those bets, they play the statistics. They're lining up with the best teams and the weather as well with the unders. So yeah, I mean, the money Mahomes won. Patrick Mahomes has won me money in the past. I'm wondering if that's not an emotional bet there a little bit. So I'd say that if there's one of those 5 that I was a little iffy on, I'd say it's probably the Chiefs -8.5 if I had to pick one. But I feel really good about the Ravens money line, Eagles -6, and the unders in those 2 games as well. Feel really good about those. So, yeah, on the Chiefs -8.5, I was actually 50-50 on whether I wanted to take the Lions 9.5 or the Chiefs 8.5. And I guess the reason I took the Chiefs was being that, number one, Patrick Mahomes, I feel comfortable putting my money on him. And the game being outdoors in the cold, and then the Texans' offensive line, hopefully for me and my money, not holding up. So, yeah,
Hey,
it's a gamble, it's a risk.
yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend. Really good weekend, a lot of good matchups, and it feels like a lot of these matchups are going to be determined. They could be determined early in the game, and it depends on who gets a fast start and who gets out early, take out the run game of the other team, or there are a lot of different games. All these games to go, but you know what, man, the Ravens and the Bills game, I can't decide on this game. I keep going back and forth. I mean, 1 minute I'm taking the Bills, next I'm taking the Ravens. I think I'm going to go with the Bills. And yeah, the Ravens running game much better. Their run defense much better, and they can pass the football just about as well. Zay Flowers is out. I'm pretty sure Zay Flowers isn't going to play, so that's a big loss for the Ravens. But I don't know, man. Like I think I'm going to stick to my gut on this one because I really can't pick, and my gut is the Bills because I think Josh Allen and the many weapons that he has. I mean, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman has impressed me. I did not think he was going to be that guy in the NFL, but quarterback like Josh Allen, he's definitely helping his case, helping him out. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, James Cook out of the backfield as well. I mean, the Bills have all these weapons, so I'm going to trust those Bills weapons more. But like you said, if this game turns into a shootout, the Ravens are still probably going to be able to run the football just as well. So, I mean, but they probably won't be able to pass as well, considering the Bills' passing defense is a lot better than theirs. And I'd say the Bills and Ravens passing game are similar, but the discrepancy between the passing defenses could be the winner for the Bills, can be the difference for the Bills. But this game, as you see, I don't even know who to pick for certain parts of this game. I can't make a decision on this game. So you know what? I'm sticking with my gut feeling for the Bills. I'm sticking with the Bills, and this is a game I wouldn't put any money on myself. Don't listen to me though. I mean, this man knows his stuff a lot more than me when it comes to gambling. So he's a much better bet in that terms.
Well, and
but
it is a coin flip. I'd say
yeah,
it's a coin flip for your money. But in a very even matchup, if you can find a small advantage, that usually is the decisive advantage. In basketball, when two teams are very close, I like to go with the team that's a better free throw shooting team, because if it's going to be a close game, down at the end of the game when they're shooting free throws, give me the better free throw shooting team, right? Especially if they're at home. I see this as kind of the same matchup. It's just going to be a very close game. Who's going to get that final score? Who's going to have that big turnover? You're right to go with your gut. I remember you picked the Rams when the rest of us on the crew didn't. So you were the only one right about that. And you can be right here as well. Sometimes your gut can be right, and this it's a 50-50 game. It could go either way.
Yeah.
And the Bills have some advantages, being at home. I think the Bills' offensive line is a very, very good offensive line. So I'm interested to see the matchup between strength on strength there. How does that Bills' offensive line match up against that Ravens' defensive line? Because they're both very good. And
Right.
we'll see how that plays out there. And then, obviously the Bills need to pass the ball. They need to be able to pass the ball in this game to be successful. I think the Ravens, they're going to have to run, but they need to pass enough, right? So, yeah, it's interesting. I understand how your money could go either way on this one. I'd point out coaching. If you're asking me who's the better coach, I'm taking John Harbaugh on this one. He's a Super Bowl winner, and McDermott has not proven himself yet. He has not proven that he can take the Bills to the promised land. I don't think he's a bad person at all. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, coaching-wise, is he as good as Harbaugh at pulling the strings and already knowing what it takes? So maybe that's a little bit of a edge for the Ravens there. I'm hoping with my bet, I'm telling you, with my money being on the Ravens, I'm hoping that's a good thing. But yeah. Hey, maybe this is Josh Allen's year. He just keeps getting better. And,
Yeah.
He has performed well in some of these matchups. Like, even though he did not beat Patrick Mahomes, he has played right there with him a couple times. He's had, what was it, that one game where I think they scored 40-some points both, and it was like maybe they went to overtime or something. And
that game was insane.
Yeah. Like, I just remember there being a ridiculous game where they scored a bunch of points, and heck, it might have even been in the playoffs. And yeah, he's right there. And you wonder sometimes about Lamar, because you have seen Lamar have some bad luck in the playoffs a couple times. So you're wondering, is he able to perform as well when all that pressure starts to mount? Because it gets to be more and more as you get deeper. And yeah, we'll find out, and it'll be a great matchup. I do expect this to be a good game, and heck, I'm praying for snow as well with that under. I want to see snow. I want to see a rock fight. I want to see people running and sliding and slipping. And
those are always fun games.
Yeah,
remember the Colts and the Bills had one of those games a long time ago.
That's football. Hey, you know what? And every once in a while, make these guys play a Super Bowl outdoors.
Yes.
every once in a while.
Yes.
Because why should it be that the final game is played in a warm, cozy atmosphere every year? Because that's an advantage for the teams that play in that atmosphere.
Right.
How about the Green Bay Packers get a Super Bowl? you know, like how about some of these northern teams? Because I look at it like that with the college football playoffs this year. You see some of these southern teams come up north and not be able to play well, and that got me thinking. I'm like, well, for the last 10, 20 years, every one of these championship games, every one of these playoff games has been indoors, down south, where it's warm, and none of these southern teams that had to come up and play in the cold and do all that. Like, it's an advantage to one side, and so mix it up. Prove that you can do it. Like I want to see some of these SEC teams that like to act like they're the best thing in the world come up north and prove it. And the SEC
Right.
hadn't made the championship in 2 years, so I'd like to point that out too. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys, I'm a Big Ten. I'm a Big Ten guy here. I like Notre Dame. I like Indiana. I like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. I like the Big Ten, man. That's my
Yeah, and
territory.
what, 2 years in a row, a Big Ten team makes the championship. Will
Makes
be 2 years in a row that they
champion.
win it.
Yes, sir. That it's funny what the NIL has done, because now all the teams get to pay their players, not just the ones in the South.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Um, all right. Is there anything else that you want to bring up before? Because I think we
No,
went through all the games. Is that it?
no. National championship. My money is on Ohio State, but my heart is with Notre Dame.
Yeah, those, you always have those moments, man. You want one team to win, but you're like, yeah,
No,
is it
that's
worth your money?
Well, that's the one good thing about me, is that when I'm looking at teams that are not teams that I like, that I root for, like my hometown teams, I look at all the other teams as numbers, statistics. I look at them like, would I put my money on them? And when I do that, it's a fair evaluation. I look at good, I look at bad.
Right.
I point the two out, and it is what it is. I'm not being personal. I'm not attacking nobody. I like to make my little sarcastic jokes about stuff like the SEC and stuff like that. But honestly, like, it's a numbers evaluation, and I like to point out some stuff. And when I find information that nobody pays attention to, or nobody's really considered, like, those southern teams coming up and playing in the north, that kind of thing, that's just like a little caveat of information that I like to twist on that a little bit, because it's just an odd piece of information. It's interesting too, right?
Yeah.
People can see the value in that analysis, I guess, right? Just pointing stuff out, being critical. Like, I'm just a critical person. I've been taught to be that way, and I look at the numbers, and if the numbers say this, this is how it is.
Exactly. So, all right, man. I guess that'll be it. So, thank you guys for tuning in. It was a great episode. Had a good time talking some betting, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you guys stick around, man. We have a lot of really fun betting, content on the way, opportunities. I mean, ways for you to make money, but of course, always be responsible with your betting. Always, don't bet more than what you should. Don't, just because you win this, oh yeah, let's put all my savings in that. No, just, bet responsibly. Don't do anything crazy, unless no, don't do anything crazy. Let's not
No,
even.
no. Never bet more than 1 to 5% of your total bank. Whatever you have in your gambling accounts is your bank. You never bet more than 1 to 5% of that on any given bet ever.
That's right. That's right. And hey, if you guys want to learn like all that stuff, like, the 3 out of 5 he was talking about earlier, he placed an odd amount of bets, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we got all that kind of stuff like gambling guides and all that kind of good stuff coming up in our futures. So stick around. This is going to be the place for you, whether you like to gamble or not, whether you play fantasy football and you gamble. Doesn't matter what you do. If you like sports, you like football, we're going to have something for you here future. We got a lot of cool things going on. So it's a privilege. It's an honor to have Shooter McHenry on today. thank you for coming on, man. If there's anything you'd like to say for yourself about your gambling, about your betting, your gambling, in the future of that, if you'd like to say anything, go for it before we get out of here.
Sure. Yeah, we're just looking forward to adding some resources here for the gambling community, the sports gambling community, and we're gonna be working on that kind of stuff over time. We're going to develop a website. We're going to have a lot of different types of stat sheets and spreadsheets that gather information that gamblers and bettors would like to have, so that they don't have to spend the time to go gather all that information themselves. They'll have a place to go to where a lot of the information they're looking for is already centralized and presented for them in a organized manner. So it's something that we're going to work on over time. If people have any suggestions, feel free to comment. We're looking to build something here and build a community together, and we're always open to suggestions from the people who listen. And we're always going to be trying to give you guys a little bit of an edge, a little bit of information to help you guys out as well. And we'll be here working hard to bring you accurate and legitimate information. And beyond that, I hope everybody enjoys their weekend, and best of luck to everyone out there.
Of course, same from me. Good luck, everyone. Hope your favorite team wins, or I hope you win lots of money. Either one's good, right? So that's it. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for watching this entire episode or whatever you watched. Great time, really good time. It's a privilege to be on here with this guy. It's a privilege to, it's an honor to be able to talk with him today, and he's going to be sticking around. I promise you, he's not going anywhere. So thank you guys for sticking around. This is the JDW Sports Talk Show. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Remember, this is a show from fans for the fans, because we are the fans. So I'll catch you guys next time. JDW and Shooter McHenry out.